It's time to get some SportSense. You're gonna get some SportSense. You better get ready for SportSense. SportSense.
Hello, everybody. This is SportSense, the show for people who want to know just enough sports to socialize with other humans. I'm Cooper Epps, an expert at not knowing anything about sports, and as always, I'm here with my dad, James Epps, the resident sports expert. Dad, how you doing today?
Good, Coop. Sometimes when you start that lineup, how your intro goes, you should say, this is for those that want to make sense of sports sometimes. Anyway.
We should make it, you're right. Yeah, we should play with the name.
Playing on, yeah. Anyway, I'm doing well, Coop. I'm excited. It's the last day of March. You just had a birthday. We recognized last week. Your little sister had a birthday today.
Yeah, happy birthday, Addison.
Yep, she's still in her 20s, so we'll keep her there for another year.
Good for her.
So
we're gonna have her on as a guest, hopefully before long, because we've said
right.
she'd be a great guest.
And don't even forget, we've got to have Paxton on the next one.
Okay,
so we can talk about national champ. He wanted to do it tonight. I said we're gonna be up too late. He is not. He is. Paxton's like a pit bull. He's relentless, so we got to get him on.
Very
and that'll be the best one, probably, when he can talk about the national championship. So anyway, all right.
Well,
I'm doing well, and it's good to be here.
Well, thanks for taking the time. And speaking of the national championship, this is going to be our March Madness Round 2 episode. So last week was kind of our big one. It got narrowed down from the 68 teams all the way down to 16, I think, by the end of that weekend, right? Or was it 32?
So
whatever.
Sweet 16. You're right. The first round is you get.
Oh yeah.
Sweet 16.
So last week we got it down to Sweet 16. Talked a little bit about that. Now this week, for those who haven't been keeping up, we are down to the final
four.
Yep. So this past weekend we got narrowed down to the final 4. So
that's correct.
This upcoming weekend, first weekend of April, we've got the last 2 matchups before we know who the championship game will be.
That's right. And they'll play on Saturday for the matchup. For the finals. Yeah.
Are both those games this weekend, or are they going to
No. That's how it goes. It'll be both to be this Saturday, right? Okay. The 2 semifinals, if you will. The final 4 semifinals are this Saturday. Championship game between the final 2 is Monday night.
Okay,
next
today.
Monday.
Okay.
Yep, a week from today.
All right. Well, buckle up for that, everybody. And that is the biggest, hottest sports thing going on right now. So we will get into that so you kind of know who's playing who, what to expect, and if it's worth tuning into any of these games.
Yeah,
exactly. For some of these, when, I guess for other people here, if.
Right.
So before we dive into that, let's talk about our bracket group and who's leading the charge right now. Because it's crazy. We've got one who has a ridiculous ranking. So I'll start with number 3 and we'll work up to 1. Okay.
Sounds good.
So our number 3 position right now is my buddy Zahid. So I think we mentioned him on the podcast before. He was our big Oregon fan. He was sending questions about Oregon during the last most recent football season. And we were sad when they beat BYU, and that was what we were upset. Or what was it? No, they lost. I can't remember.
They lost in the playoffs, but yes.
Oh, that's what. They were number 1 for so long, and ended up losing to
semifinals. Yeah.
All
right.
So Zahid, he's a pretty sports savvy guy, so that makes sense that he's kind of up there. Okay, I just call him my brother-in-law these days. He's my sister-in-law's boyfriend. So, Jaden, hey, how's it going? Good job. You're in second place.
So, Jaden, to put it in perspective, remember, I went over the numbers. The total participating in the ESPN Tournament Challenge was right under 25 million brackets. Okay. And so, Jaden is killing it at the moment. His rank is like 120,504. So he's a little over 120,000, which is very impressive when you talk about versus 25 million, right?
It puts him in the 99.5 percentile, it says.
Right, so that's pretty crazy. All right, go ahead with the next.
So, and it looks like he's set to, he could win for sure, our group. So Okay, and in our number one position is Lindsay, which neither of us know. I mean, I kind of know her, but so Lindsay, Dad, is so she's my she's my father-in-law's best friend's daughter, who somehow got a hold of her dad's phone and submitted a bracket.
Well, let me tell you, is it you say Lindsay? Lindsay?
Yes. So,
Yeah,
but it's
well,
like it says Lindsay's picks,
it says
but
Lenners.
from
Lindlers.
or her nickname
Yeah.
but it says D Knight, which is her dad, as like the account holder. So not
Yes.
sure how she got into Dan's account, but Lindsay, you are killing it. Dad, describe a little bit what we're looking at
Yes.
here.
Just to give an idea, again, just under 25 million entrants, if you will, or brackets completed and filled and submitted. Lindler, I'm gonna call her Lindler too. Lindler is blowing smoke out of she's ranked 38,161 or 99.9%.
Crazy. I bet she's got to
So
be 99.997%
it's yeah, I mean,
or something. She's
yeah, you
up
look
there.
at so you take 36,000 divided by 24,500,000 or 6 million, whatever the number was, it gives you a clue. So
Yeah.
congratulations, it's great. And she's got Duke winning it all. She's got Duke playing Florida, which man, she's right there with the game. With really all the gamblers are saying that's going to be the final game. We'll talk about that in a minute, but she's got Duke winning. Now I got it. See Zahid and myself actually. Let's talk about a little. Do you remember our dark horse discussion before?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I'm a dark horse. I'm number 5 behind you, Coop. Coop, way to go. Number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Coop's
But
probably.
I had yeah, that's the one I had Duke winning. Okay.
Yeah, because so what I'm saying is the top 3 out of 4 are Duke winners. But
Yeah.
Zahid and I both have we're dark horses, because if either one of ours wins the Nationals championship, we'll win this thing amongst this group because of the point total. You get so many points when you win the whole title.
Okay.
So right now I'm only behind Lindler. I'm only 30. Let's see, 100. Where am I? I'm 130 points behind her. Well, by the time if you get the right win the next game, and then you win the national championship, so you other 3 are Duke people. So if somehow Florida beats Duke, I think I'll squeeze in with the win, because you get 380 points for the final game, I think.
Okay.
Something
that's
like
the
that.
most important for sure.
Right. You know what I mean? So if you pick that one, and Zahid probably the same thing. If for some reason Auburn, they're not going to win Zahid. So just,
Yeah.
But if I think Florida has a good chance. Duke right now looks overwhelming. We'll talk about them. But anyway, way to go, Lindler. I just think we had to really, really, pick her out. And hey, everybody was nice enough to do these. We had 27 entrants, I think, 26, 25, so. 26. So way to go. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Seriously, crazy. Thanks for participating. And we'll I didn't even think they listened to the show, so maybe my father-in-law sent the link out to a few friends or something.
Yeah.
So,
well, we appreciate Craig.
So yeah, we'll make sure to send out this episode to a couple of them who maybe wouldn't even hear this shout out otherwise. But okay. Well, speaking of all of this, let's get into this current status of March Madness. You're saying we've got our final 4 contestants. I'm calling them contestants.
Oh my
all
gosh,
set to go.
teams.
We've got them all set to go. So who are the 4 teams? And let's talk about who you think is going to win.
We got Auburn versus Florida and Duke versus Houston.
Those are all the number 1 seeds.
There you go. So that was my lead in. Can you believe it? Now, I should have done a quick question, but I think it's been it happens so rarely that all number 1 seeds are in the final 4. So if you want to Google that real fast.
Well, no, I've already don't Google it, because that was my question for you today.
Oh shoot. What was the question?
Did you already Google it?
Nope.
All right. So
I was asking you to do it. I was being too lazy.
Oh yeah, I'm on it. So
right.
we're gonna do an early pops quiz. Here we go.
All right. Yep.
So apparently this was even before we knew about this week. It says this math professor, and it links to somebody, predicts all 4 number 1 men's seeds will reach the final 4 this year. Has that happened before?
Is that my question? I just get a yes or no, so that's very kind.
Well, tell me that first.
So yeah,
Do you
so
think it's happened before?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Well, do you know what year it's happened before?
No, but I know it's happened before.
It's fairly recent history, but it has been a long time.
2001.
Oh, that was a pretty good guess. I thought you were about to land it. 2008. So I was in 8th grade.
I knew it was in this century. That's all I could tell you. Earlier in this century.
That was still what? I can't. Quick math. 2025, 2008.
13.
12
Right?
years?
This is our 15th. So, yeah, we're showing math. So, 15, 17 years.
Wow.
17.
Yeah, I really went. Okay.
It's
yeah.
our 18th
I
year,
really
actually.
went
But
the wrong way. Okay. So,
All right.
yeah. So, yeah, it's been a while. Okay.
By the way, this is not a math podcast. So, for anybody who wants to bring that up.
Yeah, I don't know why it's the question.
I love doing math in my head. Okay. So, that's good. So, yes, that was the last time.
Okay.
So it is very rare.
It's very rare. So we got all 4 number 1 seeds, which you said we talked about last week. I don't know if you saw, but I titled last week's episode "The Rich Get Richer" because that was a big point we brought up was
and green.
Yeah. Okay. Your notepad says a lot of chalk. Okay. So yeah. So
remember?
Yeah. Yes, we've talked. That's been the term we've used the past few weeks. Chalk means who are the higher ranked. Chalk means they're higher ranked teams, basically.
Right.
It's a reference to if you just run down a bracket chalkboard, right?
Pick the favorite every time. Pick the favorite every time. Yeah.
And so that's the chalk.
That's chalk.
Set. I don't. It's weird. It's a weird term. How it's used in a different sentence differently every time you say it. I feel like. But anyways, I think our listeners get it by now. so yeah, I titled the episode last week "The Rich Get Richer" because we talked about how it seems like now more than any time before that the best teams are where the most money's at. Essentially, we joked about how Elon Musk should just pick a random team and try to bring him to greatness, right. Some tech school from wherever. Anyways, so point being is here we are. It's the Final 4, and number one, the rich are dominating and swallowing it. They've swallowed everybody else up this bracket. So how do you feel about it? What are you thinking?
To some degree, yes. But just overall, we talked about what we really were talking about too. It wasn't just the number 1 seeds. It was like the mid majors, the Cinderellas were really the ones that kind of getting wiped out. So there's probably going to be of this caliber and similar monies being donated by, the boosters and such, we might end up having in this country, we could end up having 15 teams, maybe 12, 15, 17 teams. I don't know. It's somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe, who's going to have equal footing on money, basically. Right.
Okay.
So then it is going to be about recruiting, good coaching. What do you do with that? It's just not where the hurt, I think, is going to be, or the loss that we love is having a deep Cinderella run. And it's just because supposedly the semi-equal footing in the old days, now we call it old days, just 3 or 4 years ago, the NCAA had the same rules. You could have a scholarship. You couldn't get, the old argument, which they found the penalty. You could have bagels provided for you, but you couldn't have cream cheese provided. If you believe it or not, that really was a penalty at one point.
Yeah,
that's how stupid.
Right, I forgot we talked about that. Yeah, how it could be considered bribery if there was cream cheese on the
yes. So how stupid it is. But now it's wide open for the money. But let's talk about these teams real quick, and then we can kind of talk about what happened. So what is the stand? We could talk about BYU as part of this. These 4 teams, there were a couple close calls, but I got to talk about Duke first because that leads us down the trail back to the team that beat BYU so badly and set records, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about their category. So it was Alabama beat BYU, beat us 113-88. They set records, and they set a record of 25 threes, right? 25 threes. Which is insane.
So that record, has that never been shot in a basketball game or never been shot in a March Madness game?
March Madness NCAA tournament.
Okay.
And honestly, I think in season, I don't know what it is. It might be some off-brand team that did that. I don't know, but that still is unheard of. And the percentage was unheard of. It was 49.1%. So right at 50% of so they shot 50. They shot 51 attempts of threes. That was a record too. Bottom line is that BYU scored 88 points and they played tough. They cut it to 7 like we talked about. But what I'm setting up is how that team got the mojo going. And so that one player who had 34, 36 points, Sears is his name, like the Sears store. Sears shot out of his mind, right? He made 10 threes himself.
Wow.
Next game when they played Duke, now Duke had a better defense than BYU. I think they had a better game plan than BYU, but I'm not convinced it's this big of a difference. Sears had, I think, a total of 9 points and only made 1 3-pointer. So that's how cold he went, or how good Duke's defense was. You name it. But Duke beat Alabama. Remember, they beat us 113-88. Duke beat Alabama 85-65. Alabama only scored 65 lousy points after boat racing us for 113. So what I'm saying is, I don't think Alabama. That's the greatest game Alabama's probably ever played and will ever play. We just happen to be the unlucky team to be in their way.
Well, yeah. So we're jumping a little bit ahead in bullet points for me, but that is the question I had was Alabama really good or was BYU really bad?
No, it's neither one. I mean, that night, Alabama, they would have beat anyone shooting like that.
Yeah.
They would have beat anyone, even Duke, that they would have beaten them.
So it wasn't that BYU was like playing terrible defense or anything.
They were not. They were playing. They made a critical mistake that I think they stuck to the whole game. And this is way deep in the weeds than y'all want to hear. But it's the way those 3-point shooters are. When you do a pick and a little switch off to get the 3-point shooter open,
whatever.
A lot of times the guy chasing them goes under the pick is what we kept doing. And they kept getting free looks instead of trying to go on top of the pick and disrupt. Duke went on top of the pick. Defending. In other words, Duke got in their face a lot more, and Alabama just could not. They just couldn't repeat it. There's no way they could repeat it. And Duke is a much better team. So Duke is a much better team than BYU this year, no doubt. Much better.
Yeah.
But BYU is a good team. It was a really good team. But Alabama played a freakish, unbelievable game. Obviously, it set records, right? Did things that no one's ever done, and no team has ever done. And then when they ran into Duke, they played poorly and kind of cold, and then Duke was that awesome. You know?
I wonder if it seems almost like a mental game, because I wonder if they looked at BYU and just said, they're not really that serious. Well, we can trounce them. And then they look at Duke. That's a number 1 seed. They're historically incredible, and I wonder
best player in the country. The best.
Yeah, I wonder if they were just shaking in their boots a little bit going into that Duke game.
I think they just started off cold. Versus with us, BYU hung in there in the first few minutes, and then when that train got rolling. Their backups were hitting threes. Their water manager was hitting threes. I mean, it was it was the most something. Anyway, so that's how Duke arrived there, right? So Duke ultimately beat Alabama, which was, I think Alabama hung in there, not even playing that great, and then Duke really separated the last few minutes of the game. Yeah. They really took control of the game.
Well. Yeah, well, that's interesting. I don't think we need to do that for all these Final Four teams.
No. Okay, we can. Yeah, we'll just hit on the 4. So you got Auburn playing Florida, and Florida, they barely. So just so you know, Florida, they had a heck of a game themselves. They barely beat Texas Tech 84-79. They had a great game. Houston manhandled Tennessee, though. Houston. That's who beat BYU so bad
almost
earlier
by 20 points. Yeah.
Houston's tough. So if I'm the rank, the Final 4 teams, Auburn and Florida, I really think Florida should win that game. You know what I mean? This is what we're talking about. I think Florida is the most complete team next to Duke. But I think Duke's going to have their hands full of Houston. But look, they just handled Alabama, and I think Houston and Alabama have some similarities. They have some length in their players. They can shoot threes. They can race up and down the floor, right? That's Houston's game too. And Duke dismantled Alabama. So I'm giving it Duke and Florida in the championship. And I'm pulling for Florida because of my bracket with you guys. But I'm thinking Duke could pull it off again this year. And I'd be kind of surprises me. They've gotten better as the year gone on. Anyway,
did they win last year? Is that why you say again?
No, UConn. No, because they've won so many times.
Oh, just Krzyzewski.
No, remember UConn won the last 2 years in a row. UConn.
Yeah. Krzyzewski, is that how you spell? Is that how you say Coach K's name?
Krzyzewski. Coach K.
Yeah, that's wow. You would not think, what the heck, Coach K? It's spelled KRZYZEWSKI. See, I want to say Krzyzewski.
You don't say that. You do not. Do you know what though was ironic when he came from he coached at Army. When he came from Army, he was just a late 20s guy at Duke. They introduced him in the ACC press conference, and whatever year he started, was it 80, 81? Somewhere around there, 79, 80, 81, somewhere around there. And believe me, none of these are all ACC. This is all Southern reporters could not even come close to saying his name. So he kept trying to introduce himself and tell him how to say his name. He kept teaching them how to say it phonetically. But he said, don't say the K. It's Krzyzewski. And they all started calling him Coach K because they couldn't.
Yeah.
It was too painful to do. So obviously he's not from Brazil, right? You know, his family line is clearly from Polish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is that a Jewish name?
It's Polish. It's just Polish.
Just Polish? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still
from Poland.
Okay. Well, there's our general kind of March Madness update for you guys. Now I just kind of had a couple questions for you, Dad, a couple mailbag, and then one for me I wanted to bring up. Okay. So let's start to bring this home. So I asked you before we started recording, you said you hadn't heard about this. But I'll say it again just for the show. Hey, Dad, have you heard?
Yeah.
Have you heard what happened to Indiana's basketball team?
I have not. What in the
Sounds
world?
like there's going to be a punchline here. I don't really have a punchline, but it's
yeah, the way you set it up sounds like it's going to be a good joke or something.
Yeah. It is actually really crazy though. So Macy texted me this headline. I'll just say Indiana. Indiana loses its entire roster to the NCAA transfer portal. or graduating. But so you didn't hear about this? Their entire roster is went poof. So I looked it up. About like maybe a third of them graduated,
right?
And then the rest have already transferred somewhere or are in the portal.
Right, in the portal, probably. Yeah. Oh, wow. I have not seen that.
So we haven't talked about Indiana at all just because, and I did a little homework before this. They didn't make it into the tournament at all this year, although it seemed like they were pretty good, but just not quite. They couldn't quite pull it through. Trying
to get a little bit better. When Bobby Knight was their head coach for 3 decades, he was the crazy explosive one. He and Coach K were both former Army guys.
Okay.
They're buddies, but people made excuses for Bobby Knight for all those years because he won national championships and he was a winner in terms of wins. And these players were loyal to him, but it's kind of like being I think in SEAL team, right? You love your brothers, but you're really beat to death, to death in the training and what you go through. Well, that was what it was like playing for him. I mean, it was basically abusive. Today's players couldn't handle him. But anyway, so he built them into a dynasty for 20 plus years, maybe 25 years.
Okay.
And then he finally got run out of town. He stopped winning as well. And they got tired of his act, his misbehaving. He coached out West for a little while and this time.
Okay.
So technician, basketball coach, he was great. I didn't like his style and he was basically abusive, but he made them huge for a long, long time. Wow. Indiana basketball since they had some other few moments, but they just haven't been on the national scale or national scene in a long time much. Yeah. But that's crazy.
Part of this homework I was doing, I guess basically a week ago, actually a little over a week ago, the coach got fired. The Indiana coach got fired and a new one got
See, I
hired
knew about that. Yeah.
named Darian DeVries, I guess. And then
DeVries. Mhm.
and then 10 days later, the whole roster goes poof. So,
Yeah. He has his work cut out for him and his staff.
yeah, well, that's what I was wondering if you knew anything, if like people just didn't like the coaching pick, or like why would the whole team go?
I don't know. I
go
have to look.
by?
I think again, graduation, and we brought this up last week. I told you the first few hours, 500 were in the portal. Now several thousand in the portal within a few days. So again,
Oh.
coaching change, that alone can set you off.
Yeah.
And if they just felt like they had relationships elsewhere, other coaching relationships, other friendships with basketball players,
Yeah.
and I guess they were more than willing to take a leap.
So here's a question for you. As we've talked about the portal, I didn't realize that you could just quote go into the portal without like having a commitment somewhere. Like you can just so you can basically just go float in there and say, "Hey, I'm open to opportunity."
Exactly. So you can do it yourself. You go in, and you have some of them have agents and things like that too. But they go in and they've got you have your video film, you got your video in there, you got your where you play, what you wore, It's like a bio. It's so coaches, it's like shopping at a grocery store or going into Sam's Club, and you got volume. You just start searching. So let's say my team desperately needed a point guard because my point guard got injured, or he went in the portal. I lost my point guard. So they're going to go. You can go in there and sort them and all that. The coaches do, and go to all the point guards at Division I schools that are in the portals, and and start looking at their history and start. Yeah, you're just shopping.
But what happens if nobody picks you? Like, do you fall back to the team from before, or is it like quitting a job where you're really
It all depends. It all depends on the agreement that you had, I guess, and it all depends if your coach wants you back. Nobody's ever nowadays. You're not guaranteed that 4-year scholarship anymore because everybody can come and go. So that has changed. I'm not sure the fine print on that, but you can go in. Here's what happens a lot of times too. BYU had 2 players like this last year who came back. They could go in the portal and see what the interest is, and if their coach wants them back. In fact, so if the coach really wants you, he's recruiting you back. It's like recruiting you a second time to come back. And we had 2 of our good players came back to BYU. They went in. One of them went and left. He went. One of our best players went with Coach Pope over to Kentucky.
Oh yeah.
But so you can go back to your school, but you're not. I don't think you're guaranteed a spot to go back to your school. So you could be like playing the what's the thing around the chairs, and always musical one chair chairs? Empty. Yeah, musical chairs. It's like that. End of the time, you might be out of luck, and you might have to be scrambling to go play somewhere.
Got to play that game around the chairs. That classic
the game around that classic game around the chairs.
Well, yeah, I can tell you, Macy wouldn't have liked it if I had temporarily broken up with her, so I could shop around and see if there's any interest in me from someone else before going back to her. So that's interesting that you can do that in basketball.
You know how you like to edit me out when I get political? I'd edit that out, what you just said. Just even talking about it. I'm just kidding. I'm just
making a comparison. It's
it's kind of crazy.
I mean, I'm just saying, if I were a coach, I don't know how I'd feel about a player going out like that and then coming back.
Things have changed so much. It depends how bad you want them back. Also, this is part of it's just a new world. I can't believe I'm talking like this. All my life has been something different. But now what they do that too is they're actually checking their market value. So how much money can they make? NIL. So if they put themselves out there, some schools, that school, let's say they're not superstars, right? But they're pretty darn good. And right now their other school, they're only making like $50,000 a year. Yeah. And they go out there and they go, oh yeah, we'll give you $250. Yeah, we need you bad. We need a 4, need a shooting guard. We've got NIL. We got enough to give you $250,000.
So you're saying
he's making 50.
So you're saying it's just business, and coaches understand that.
Well, they've had to. If they don't, they're a lot of the coaches that just couldn't stand this, and there's some big names in college football who just retired. They just said, wow, this is just not what I've done. Nick Saban, Alabama. Nick Saban would probably still be coaching.
Oh, you're saying the coaches retired?
The coaches, some of them retired. No. Some of the coaches say
just because they don't like this new game.
Yeah, you're recruiting you're recruiting your existing players. They're moving left and right, and you're having a changeover, and you got to go out and sell money now, big time money. Before they did, remember I told you, some schools did it under the table, a little extra card here, a little something. Now it's just flat out, how much money can you give me for some players?
Yeah.
And then some players are smart enough who have got good, maybe the parents have taught them good balance and things like that. And they say, yeah, but I'd rather have you get an education at Duke University, even though you're going to make $400,000 a year less.
Yeah.
Or something, I mean, I know it's the crazy stuff. Yeah. So I do think they do go to the portal for the NIL, name, image, and likeness payments, and set them value, a market value. If they go there and somebody's offering them, then they can go back. If they really want to stay where they are, they can go, but listen, coach, my family needs it. I need it. Can you get me, can you get me close to what these guys are offering me? New coach has got more money maybe that year, and he says, yeah, I can do that if he wants them. If he doesn't want them, he said, nah, you're good.
right.
I'd take that deal if I were you, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's all a negotiation for everybody. It's a crazy world.
Yeah. I mean, you hear about that. Yeah, like I said, when trying to negotiate a raise at a job or something, you got another offer here, and you got to be careful because they'll say, well, please, take that other offer, please.
You better be ready to take that offer. Right. I think.
Yeah, like sure, we're happy to see you get this new opportunity. So
yeah.
Anyways,
we're happy for you.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, and I really like that you've explained some of this kind of stuff over the past few months, because it's I had no idea this was going on in the sports landscape. This kind of cultural shift, huge shift that I think is important.
It's like a massive earthquake that split the United States in half. That's how big this was. This isn't a minor earthquake. This is a California falling off the West Coast earthquake. I mean, that's how big this is.
Shoot. All right. Well, let me give you a couple mailbag questions and we can wrap this up. So both are from my buddy Evan. He's written in some things to us before. He's a big basketball guy. He really likes basketball. I warned him. I said, my dad might not be in the know on this or care about this, but he wanted to ask you about the Memphis Grizzlies firing their head coach, Taylor Jenkins, seemingly out of nowhere. Is this a big breaking news type thing, or what's the deal here?
It's very unusual. I told you I didn't like the NBA, but I'm never out of the know. I mean, I can't help but paying attention to it because I hear it on the shows I listen to. I can resist, but I hear it on the shows. I see it on ESPN. I see it on Fox Sports. So they fired him with about 9 games to go before the playoffs start, and they've got a pretty good team. It's not a bad team.
So the Grizzlies are a pretty good NBA team.
Yeah,
and Taylor Jenkins has a pretty good reputation, pretty good coach.
Yeah, he's done pretty well, and especially so their superstar is Ja Morant, Ja Morant.
Okay.
Ja's he came in and up to even through last year, he had some real mishaps of maturity, right? Video clips with guns and gangsters and being cool, and got suspended a couple of times. But he is a superstar in the league. He's just got morally and maturity wise, he's growing, hopefully growing up. But he really made a couple of big missteps and had some big suspensions. Sure. But now he's been back, and he's still a superstar. He had an injury and he's coming back. So bottom line is, apparently this coach, who I think is a good basketball coach, it is a business, really a business, right? The NBA is really a business. Apparently the coach's style, the coach's plan, and the coach's efforts in terms of the way he coached was more really team-oriented, and he expected them, for example, I'll give you one example. Offensively, he expects them to move the ball around, kind of like a college coach, move the ball around, get in everybody's hands, and get the best shot no matter who gets it, right? Yeah. And as he kept driving that, he kept, in some great sense, he had a superstar. And not all teams have a superstar. Ja Morant can be a superstar. I'm going to give you 2 parts of this, what happened. But when doing that, he basically took Ja Morant out of his game. So he quit not having the ball as much, couldn't shoot as much. As they say in the lingo, he wasn't getting his. You know, he wasn't getting his, that's for sure. His points, his touches, his attention, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't the focus. He was just part of the team. Does that make sense? You know, so the offense was geared.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that in recent episodes.
So right there, that created tension, and that created a problem for the coach. The culture, the environment was turning sour because Ja Morant was not happy.
Interesting. Wow.
He's the superstar. That's in basketball. You only have 5 players on the court at a time, only 5 that play most of the time. They play 7 or 8 deep. They can control when you are the superstar and one of the tops in the NBA, you got a lot to say. So having said that, Ja Morant, I think, has dropped the ball because he's been in the league long enough. He's a terrible 3-point shooter. He can shoot. He's a lengthy guard forward, but what he can do is fly through the air, I swear, almost Michael Jordan-esque, and slam the ball and but he hasn't developed his game because I told you he's lacked maturity. So he hadn't really committed to, they say that, I hate it, they say it too much. They hadn't committed to his craft. He hadn't really gotten a bit, because a lot of guys came in the league, they're not that good at 3-point shooter. Man, over the years, better, right? They become better at free throw shooting, better at defense, rebound. Well, he's just relied on that young, unbelievable, skilled body he has. And that has, and so once that, so when he got him in that rotation, they're trying to play that coach's style of basketball. Ja Morant wasn't doing what he could do best really all the time. And he needed to cut and slash and jam and be like that instead of, he had him moving the ball around, and he gets caught on the wing wide open. He's supposed to shoot. And that, he's bricking them up, and he's not very good at 3-point shot. But so it's Ja Morant, I think he had a lot to do with this, but he needs to develop his game. But the coach also didn't really read the tea leaves, as they say, and understand he had a superstar, and the owner is going to quickly get rid of a coach before the superstar.
Wow. Yeah, because I guess, the fans are coming for the star, not the coach.
Yeah.
But we talked about this last week, with BYU, how you have to get you have to get your players that you're recruiting bought into the idea that we're a team, not trying to make a star out of you.
Players. Right.
Yeah, we're trying to, as a team, achieve greatness. And so you're saying in this case, that's not.
In this case, once you have a superstar that's established and they're paying him superstar money because he got his second contract, got a huge contract, then there's just a different set of rules. It especially depends who your owner is. Your owner, a lot of these owners are billionaires now versus the decades ago when they were their ball team made them their money, right? So they had so much vested. These guys are just play toys for a lot of these multi-billionaires, right? I mean, it's neat to own a team.
Fun little hobby. Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't, this is a short leash on coaches, especially. Very short leash. But once you get a superstar, so there's a couple of great teams that are really playing well this year who would be this team oriented. And there's not a true superstar. There's a couple of stars like Cleveland. Cleveland's so good this year. They got a lot of young guys. Indianapolis is scrappy and fighting. And those are more team oriented because they don't really have a standout superstar.
Yeah.
Even Boston Celtics has 2 stars but they have bought in on the team concept. So it depends who your people are.
Right. The star thing is interesting because, when Michael Jordan's heyday, I know the names like Scottie Pippen and I thought I knew the names. There's a third.
Rodman.
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman. And then the coach of the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr. There's bunches of them. There's just bunches of good guys. Paxton,
Michael Jordan was the star, right? But it seems like they all leveled each other up and were a team and achieved much because they were working together.
He was a mega star and he demanded so much of the others. But he did understand team concept, but he was still, his skill level is so good all the way around. He did, he's the best defender in the league. I'm saying some of these other guys, it's a different world. You can't even compare the eras. You just can't. You can't compare the eras.
Well, that's unfortunate because as a coach, it'd be so frustrating to be like, I'm doing the right thing to elevate our team to get to make our team something for our state to be proud of. Or city or whatever to be proud of, and then I get fired for that.
Right,
That'd be so
He,
frustrating.
again, it's probably got toxic. He quit job. He did. He quit listening to the coach. In other words, coach's message was just, once you lose, as they say in the pros, especially some in the college ranks now, once you lose the locker room, meaning the players don't listen to you anymore, you're done. I mean,
Okay.
and the owners figure that out pretty quick once they find out. So they're gone. But it is highly unusual. The only reason I can think they did it 9 days before the playoffs and they have a good team is that they want to get the jump start because they hired they got an interim coach who's one of the assistants. They want to get a jump start and try to get the first. They want to get it. Maybe they have somebody in mind who they want, either from the college ranks as a coach or somewhere in the pros. They want to get the early run at them.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot that was a factor too, is that the timing was really weird. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, the timing is the weirdest part. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I know we're running a little long. Let me give you one last question and then we can wrap this thing up.
I got my tidbits, but mine won't take 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, Evan also said that this is also breaking news that Trae Young, who I don't know who that is, so that's my first problem.
He's a guard from Atlanta Hawks, yeah.
Okay. So Trae Young, a guard from the Atlanta Hawks, announced that he's the assistant general manager of the University of Oklahoma basketball team now.
Yeah, that's great.
So
you're seeing there's a lot more like that. So Steph Curry is now helping the Davidson College. He's basically their general manager during the off season, helping attract NIL money. It's a new thing. It started just since NIL money came around. It started maybe the very first one I heard was last year or two. In fact, one of ESPN's top analysts in is it basketball, football? I think it's football last year. I'm going blank, but he left ESPN. He completed his career and he's a general manager at his old school in the Northeast. I'll pull it back up later, but it's a very smaller school, but he's so excited because he loves his college. He loves his school and he can help them because he's so knowledgeable. It's NFL. I mean, it's football. I know that because he was such an NFL analyst. Anyway, so some of these pro athletes are now giving back to their universities that they love or went to, and they're acting as, quote, a general manager. One of the first ones to do it locally around here was when they hired Bill Belichick at UNC football. He brought a professional general manager with him. To manage all the NIL and a lot of the recruiting and the contacts and the business side of the football. So that's becoming more and more.
So yeah, with going along with our theme of more money in sports and college sports now, basically you're saying that this like Trae Young guy, he's got enough fame and
clout,
gravitas that he can go to this University of Oklahoma school and help build their program some more, just out of the kindness of his heart.
Basically, because they make so much money, and they're not worried about paying him money. They're doing it, I'm sure, almost all for free, these guys. But so remember that, what you just talked about earlier, it's not just NIL money, it's the portal, managing that portal with thousands of names. And that gives them a lot of gravitas to say, when you're a player and you just put your name in the portal and Trae Young calls you.
Yeah.
And you're a guard from whatever, Villanova or somewhere. And he says, man, we got something building in Oklahoma. How about coming to a Hawks game? I want to talk to you. I want to meet with you.
Right. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
You're talking, and that's other college kids. And then high school kids, they're all into the NBA if they're playing basketball. And so get a call or a personal visit or a personal invite from Steph Curry. You got to be kidding me. And who's going to go play at Davidson? Well, Steph Curry's going to help them get some more ball players. I guarantee it. Anyway, that's the concept. That's what's going on.
So is it a super big deal that Trae Young is doing this, or is that just kind of
he's just another one?
A bigger thing going on.
Another sign of what's going on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, very interesting. Cool. Well, thanks for answering all my questions and the people's questions today. So
did my best.
Oh yeah, I understood. You kept mentioning you had a couple tidbits you wanted to throw out.
I do.
Daddy tidbits.
One's for you because we're on the Ovechkin watch.
Oh yeah, he's coming up on the record, the goal record, right?
Against the great one, Gretzky. He's got 890. 5 more, he'll break Gretzky's record. All right.
Okay.
So plays for the Capitals. It's so cool. It's fun. That's a record everyone thought would never be broken.
Yeah.
That's how big that one was.
Man.
Just shows you records are made to be broken. Lastly, this is, and we'll talk more about it in the weeks to come. Have you heard about the Yankees torpedo bats or bowling pin bats?
No, that sounds illegal though.
It's not. Interesting enough, you do a little research real quick. Their first 3 games of the season, they've hit 15 home runs with these bats. Only 5 of the 9 players are using them. These bats have been around the minor leagues for a year or two. But it was a former assistant coach or advisor, analyst for the Yankees who went to school at MIT.
Cool.
Taught engineer, learned MIT engineering degree, taught engineering at the University of Michigan about 7 years, got into baseball, and he wanted to do an analysis because everybody's so much of different sports change, right? They're always refining. And I like to use the example of the cyclist, like in the Olympics. Go back and look at what they did 40 years ago, 50. Look at everything from their bikes to their helmets. They're always changing, right? They're looking like aliens with those helmets where they got to get the speed. You know what I'm talking about? With
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they got to cut a half a second off. Yes, they're doing all that. So that's just one example. But every sport is trying to figure out how to get an edge, especially when it comes to their equipment. Well, there's only a few requirements within the Major League Baseball. How many ounces it can be, the length of the bat, and the diameter at its maximum size. That's all.
The girth.
That's basically, yes, the circular. Yeah, that's all. Those 3 basic things, and it has to be made of wood. It's got to be certain types of wood. All right, so that's it.
Yeah, you hear about cork bats, which is where
that's illegal. They drilled the hole out of it, put cork in it to make it lighter
and easier to swing fast,
but give you the same meat. Yeah.
So what are these bats that you're talking about?
All right. So these bats. So think about it. It just shows you sometimes it takes someone to say, well, what if? And this guy was so analytical. So bats have had their basic shape. And the older I got, when I played in high school, we couldn't play with metal bats in high school. We still had to have wooden bats. And I had a 33-incher that had a real thin, narrow handle because it got me a lot more beef on the end of the bat. I love that bat.
Okay. Oh, so you can, because there's only so much that, instead of balancing that, I keep saying girth, I'm sorry, throughout the bat. But you're saying there's a bat that they would taper off the end so that you could put more.
And look at, more into where you would hit the ball, right?
Okay. But you have to kind of shift it, kind of like a balloon. Like you have to
So
shift
what's
that
happened is
somewhere.
All this has been basically the same shape forever. They put them on a lathe and they lay them down and basically, they've basically been the same shape for Major League Baseball forever. This guy did research and all this studies and research and tried a bunch of different shapes and said, well, why don't we? He goes, the basic premise was he kept doing studies and finding where on the bat were most of the batters hitting, the best hitters. And so he isolated that into a very small area where the true sweet spot was. Well, what told him was there was at least, I don't know what it was, 3 inches beyond that towards the end of the bat was almost, or 2 inches would never be in you. If you did it, if you hit it there, you didn't mean to, you hit, as they say, you hit it off the end of the bat. Or he says, so why we've got so much of the weight and bulk towards the end at the end? Cause it's wasted. Yeah. So he shrunk some of the end and brought it back down just 2 or 3 inches and made it it looks like a little torpedo, or it looks a little bit like a bowling pin. Okay. Go online and look at the Yankees bat story and you'll see what it looks like. And what that did, it put more, if you will, no better term, more meat of the bat where they usually hit the ball, strikes the bat.
And it's a little shorter now, it looks like. Based on the picture I'm looking at.
Right. And well, it seems to be because the way it looks. Yes. But the point is the redistribution of the quantity of meat. So they've more isolated the sweet spot and reshaped it a little bit. Okay. But it's all within the rules. And now apparently the Braves immediately ordered a whole shipment of these bats, and everybody wants to try it. But it's been being tried by some minor leaguers for the last year or two. It's been tested out, and some guys look at it and they go, I just can't get it. I can't get beyond the look. Other guys said, I don't care how. Look, this thing jumping off. I'm getting more out. And sure enough, the Yankees, 5 of their 9 starters have been using it, and just like their Judge hit 3 home runs the first day, opening day with it.
Wow.
And they've hit 15 home runs in 3 games.
Holy cow.
By the way, that ties the mark ever in all of Major League Baseball of the most home runs in 3 days, the first 3 days.
Cool. Wow.
So interesting. That's what I put it as a tidbit. It's interesting. Keep
That
your
is
eye
interesting.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep. All right.
I like tech stuff too. So that's cool to hear about, like evolutions in sports gear.
So any of our people that see something unusual, look that story up.
Cool. Well, we went 20 or 30 minutes over what we intended to tonight,
Of course we did.
But that was really interesting. Like, honestly, I really am glad to learn all that stuff today. So, wanted to wrap it up by saying our baby is due this week, any minute.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you both.
Thank you so much.
And I'm excited for all 4 of the grandparents.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm going to speak for, your in-laws, but
you get it.
We're really excited on this end too.
No, they're very excited. We're so grateful for your support, and for everybody listening. You guys have all been so supportive and loving as we've been getting ready for this. So thank you.
This is not near as important as that. But but I got to tell you something.
Yeah. Sure.
No, I am really excited. So also, by the way, what he's going to lead to, we might wait till after the baby's due. So we might come at a little different time next week anyway, because the national championship game is not until in basketball until Monday night. But Cooper, so I'm talking, there's this organization that wants to have me sign up with them to provide certain professional services, right?
Okay.
And I've been using another group for a few years, and I really like this group. So we're talking. And one of the ladies that reps for them was a former nationwide rep, right? So that's how she knew to call me.
Okay.
When she went to work for this new company. Well, her boss was on the Zoom conference with me and Zoom call with me. Just to, she was doing a big presentation, and she was kind of newer to it. So he was just kind of their support.
Yeah.
Well, we did it, and we got to talk, and then he found out about, of course, they always ask about children. And then, of course, we always sound like we have a lot of them, but we don't think it's that many. But then we talk about all the grandchildren and got the one on the way. And he started asking some personal questions. Then I found out about his kids. One of them plays AAU basketball sports. I said, oh, man. I said, yeah. And I said, yeah, I've spent my lifetime coaching. In fact, that's what I said. I said, I got to go because I have baseball practice. 2 of my grandsons, I'm a coach. He goes, you're coaching. I said, yeah, second generation, man. I've been coaching for 30 years and I love it more than that. But anyway, we had this call, and then I told him, in just passing, I wasn't even thinking, I just said, and he brought up something. I said, oh yeah, my son and I said, oh yeah, we have a sports podcast. And he goes, are you kidding me? I gave him the premise real quick. He's a sports guy. He wrestled in college. In fact, he wrestled at UNCG.
Oh,
and
cool. Okay.
They've canceled the program since he's wrestled, but but he's a sports guy. But and then the rep, the lady, a friend of mine I already knew, they just both couldn't believe it. And so they wrote down, they're supposed to be our new listeners this week. So
okay.
They're going to go back and look at past podcasts. So
all right.
Just hopefully, shout out to them if they listened, and
welcome.
Hopefully got 2 new listeners.
Yeah, great. Well, I mean, if they're sporty people, they might not get.
Well, one of them is sporty. I don't know about her. I don't know, but she probably is too.
Well, if you're new here, spread the love and share this with whoever you think could benefit from socially from knowing a little bit more about sports.
Well, he just says all he listens to is podcasts now, and just in general.
Yeah.
Right,
okay,
good. Instead of the radio. So he was all excited, and so we'll see.
That's awesome.
We'll get some feedback. I'll let you know.
Dang it! Well, I guess it's a good thing you didn't tell me before. I might have been might have been more tense and nervous, but knowing that we had some newbies here. But,
all right, so that, like I said, not near as important about the baby coming.
Well,
don't get me wrong.
All of this to say, if you're even still listening at this point, we're not sure what our schedule is going to be for the next couple weeks as I get adjusted to this new chapter of my life. So I'm gonna hopefully have some spare time to just put out some of our content on the socials and at least have that going on. But anyways, don't mind us if we take a small paternity leave on my end and take a little break. So with that, thank you so much for listening. If you're still here, email us at sportsensemailbag@gmail.com or DM us or text us if you have anything you'd like us to discuss on the show. Okay, Dad, have a good night.
Yeah, this is important. this is your last time as a man with no children.
Whew.
Probably. So
Yeah.
let's just a demarcation in case you look different.
Yeah.
And you doze off during the next one we do.
Yeah. We'll see how sharp or not sharp I am next time. But
All right. Buddy.
Well, see ya, everybody. See you, Dad.
See you, Coop.
Bye.
Bye.
SportSense.